Hello everyone and welcome to Suffolk Business Life. My name is Craig Sennett and Happy New Year to you all. With me today is Abbie Thoms of Polyspiral Design. Hey Abbie, thanks very much for coming in.
That's right.
Obviously, as a business, you're a design business. I assume, did you come through a traditional route, you know, sort of college, university, that sort of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
And with what you did, is the stuff you do sort of then very different to what you did now? You know, the kind of stuff you did on your degree, is it?
Very different. When I was at college, the internet was only just starting. That was in 1999 I left. So the last year, me and some friends designed the school website, the School of Arts website. And so that was sort of the .com boom era. And when I did that, I decided that's what I want to do. I want to do web design.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, I think that was February 1999, I got a job as web designer.
Okay.
So since then, I just watched the internet change and develop and grow.
So would you, if I'm right, you'd have seen the incoming of CMS systems and stuff, whereas previously it would have been hard-coded things. Yeah.
When I first built websites, they were all hard-coded, and now.
What was that?
Thank God for
PHP was
CMS.
it, or PHP, Shell and stuff?
HTML and that's what I learned from a book, how to do HTML and.
It's funny, HTML still survived though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's HTML5 now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's the HTML5, CSS3 and things like that coming, but it's still just better versions of the previous stuff. And obviously the CMS systems, which I know you're a big advocate of Drupal. Who makes Drupal? Do you know?
I think the guy's name is, if I pronounce it wrongly, Dries Burt. You might just want to just double check.
Okay. But so it's not, you know, anything that's been built by Microsoft, it's open source, is it?
No, it's completely open source. And I think it's got something to do with Joomla. I'm not sure about the history, but lots of people contribute to it.
Okay,
It comes out different versions each year.
That's like, because I originally started with Joomla. We were talking off air about this, and you know, I originally started playing around with Joomla and thought, I managed to get my head around it, and then all of a sudden I started using WordPress and thought, why did I ever bother with Joomla? Because you know it's so much easier, sort of thing. But I must admit I haven't used Drupal at all. Is it very similar to WordPress? Or?
I think it's almost a cross between the two, because I think with Joomla you have to sort of really go around the houses to add a new page, for example, whereas with WordPress you just go add page. Yeah. And Drupal was more like that, you just go add page, but then Drupal feels more configurable. But maybe that's just because my experience is more Drupal, and I've used WordPress. And I've looked at Joomla, but it was so long-winded to do anything, I lost heart quite quickly.
I think, you know, I found it an awful lot harder to use. With what you do in your day job, so it's web design, do you do sort of classic design, sort of image design, things like that as well?
I do design mostly sort of logos and websites, which is what I sort of specialise on. But my experience is web design to start with, and then I went to London and worked for a publishing company. So I've got print and web background.
Okay, right. Because you helped me with a design a couple of book covers, you know, which was fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Were you an arty type at school then?
I was always an artist. From very, very young I was drawing, and my parents always thought I'd go off and be a painter, and I think they had ideas of me living in being a starving artist in a studio somewhere, and I thought, that's not for me, I want a regular income. So I eventually became a graphic designer, and I think my family were quite surprised at that. I think they were all kind of, well, why aren't you going to be an artist? And I'm like, it's no money.
But it's the same thing though, isn't it? It's a modern day artist, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and at least when you work for a company you get regular income. But
What's your sort of favourite type sort of things to produce then?
I like the variety. I love designing logos, but I love designing websites. So if I have a lot of variety all the time, it just keeps my brain going. I really like that. But if I have a lot of programming to do over weeks and weeks and weeks, I do get a bit dragged down. It's really nice then. So I have a logo design, and I'm free again. So
with I mean, do you think there's from what you're seeing, are there any big curves coming in the design industry? Any latest technology challenges that are coming out, or anything along that sort of size? Apps
for devices and websites that adjust to apps, because adjust to devices, because you can create an app of a website, or you can make a website adjust. So that when someone's on it on their phone or whatever,
iPad, it fits the screen and stuff.
So that's the next big challenge for people.
Because HTML5 and things like that have made that sort of side so much easier, whereas previously it was a real hassle to have to resize and stuff. One of the things I've always found that's odd with it, web design, is that designers and developers and stuff are obsessed with developing for other browsers and hate doing Internet Explorer.
Yeah,
you know, and some of the people I've worked with in the past have sort of said, you know, well, I designed for, you know, it's fine with Firefox, Chrome and stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, but 60% of the market's still Internet Explorer, so you have to do that.
It used to be like 90%, but it's getting like this.
Yeah, it is. The trouble is though, Microsoft is so powerful with things like that. It's going to be really, really hard work.
I think they're getting less powerful with the likes of Google. I think Google are sort of, you know.
Yeah, they're pulling in.
Which is interesting because Google only started a few years ago.
Do you do much freehand drawing still then?
I do a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a logo I designed recently, and I can't reveal too much, but I drew a sketch first of all. I can't say who it is, but it was of a famous historical figure, and then I went straight to and made.
So you imported it and then
I just copied it because my scanner wouldn't work, so I had to kind of go, what have I done?
Okay, right.
But that's unusual. But it depends on what I have to do. But I do like sketching and drawing stuff.
Okay, with the sort of design industry, you know, you've got sort of changes of apps and various other things that have come into play. Do you find that your hardware issues are becoming, you know, you find it sort of more challenging hardware-wise now, you know, on the computers and kit and stuff that's needed?
It's not too bad. The computer I've got is a little bit out of date, and I do need a new one. But the software I use is now in the cloud, so it's not too bad. But you just have to. It's not as bad as it used to be, spec-wise. What
are the biggest issues to being, you know, sort of outside of the main town or city?
I'm not sure really.
Do you find
the broadband went down a few months ago, and I was a bit stuck. So I've now got a second line in and second broadband as a backup, just in case. And I know all the friends in the area that have broadband that I can use. So
yeah, because I said you can come and use our office sort of thing. Yeah. do you find that, you know, I mean, your client base, a lot of it, I assume, is probably Ipswich, that sort of area, Colchester sort of thing, is it?
It's all over. A lot of it's mostly local, but I have one client in Glasgow, and I have another client in Tokyo who used to be in London, because when I worked in London. I've got quite a few clients in London, and then that guy, he moved to Tokyo, so I can say I've got
international client base. Yeah. With I mean, do you find, you know, I do a lot of stuff overseas, and I find the time difference is interesting, because sometimes it's very, very hard to get hold of someone when you need to, because you sort of look at the clock and think, oh blast, it's 7 o'clock in the evening their time. It's
not really a problem if you can do everything by email. But if you do need to directly contact them, I guess Skype is. It's pretty good actually. Yeah.
Do you find, you know, I mean, the sort of design work, you know, I was really interested by the Dropbox idea. You know, I know a few people have grizzled about the security. You know, IT departments don't like it because it's potentially a security issue.
It's not secure,
but you know, it's only an issue if someone's targeting you, really, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and for what we did, you know, for sort of viewers and stuff, you're working on a book design cover for me, and literally, rather than sending an image through an email, it just literally, you know, I followed the link you sent, uploaded Dropbox. If you've got to send really, really big files that are more than 10 megabytes, some people's email just won't receive it, they'll just block it. Yeah, our server will kick it out as well.
Yeah, so you know, Dropbox is much better.
What sort of any sort of new big exciting projects and stuff that you're working on, or any that you particularly enjoyed recently?
Not really. I've got quite a few logos to do at the moment, and I've got 2 e-commerce websites I'm finishing, which would be quite interesting because they're going to be pay monthly ones, and then monthly I'll be keeping up to date with a client, how you've mapped one in the site, can you manage it okay, how's your social networking going, is your blogging going okay, so you're basically building the site with everything, social media, the SEO, the e-commerce sort of stuff and that. Yeah. How do you find the e-commerce sort of side? That's really interesting. You've got to make sure you've got your T's and C's and make sure you're covered legally. And to remind your client to say, you know, you must have your T's and C's, you must have this, you must have that.
I think the easiest option is try and automate as much of it, you know, so that you're not relying on human error.
Margin of error, keep it as narrow as possible,
With the sort of setup that you've got as a business, I mean, what's the sort of design process that you would go through with someone? You know, say like a new client comes to you and says, you know, we want you to design a logo for us. I mean, what sort of process would you go through, or sort of thought pattern? Well,
to start with, I get them to tell me what it is that their business is and the kinds of customers they're aiming at, and then what they want the logo to say, And then from there, I normally do about up to 5 to 6 alternative designs.
Yeah.
And they normally choose. Very rarely you get it right first time. It happened to me a few months ago. My clients all went, that one. Wow, you don't change it?
With no changes, yeah.
Okay, fine.
I assume when I've got logos in the past, I've always said, you sort of get your panel of 4 or 5 and you say, well, can I have that bit from that one, that bit from that one, and can you somehow stick them together, sort of thing? Yeah,
and then you might have 2 or 3 of them, and then you go for it, and then eventually you maybe after 3 or 4, average about 3 or 4 stages, and they say that one, and that's quite good.
Technology-wise, are you a Mac lover or are you a PC lover?
Whatever does the job. I've got an iPad, which I love, couldn't live without it, but I'm on a PC. Had this debate a lot on Facebook recently with some people. Some people say if you're a designer you must have Mac. Well, that's fair enough, but Macs don't do anything extra that PCs do. You can have a PC high spec that design-wise does everything you need it to do. It's up to the designer what comes out the other end. Years and years and years ago you wanted a Mac for print. That's because they handle typefaces much better, but that isn't the case anymore.
Okay.
In my opinion.
I think a lot of it's down to sort of personal preference and that, but there is a lot of brand snobbery between the Mac
and some guys said to me recently, I'd never take a designer seriously if they weren't on a Mac, and I was thrown by that. I was like, are you serious? But I know a couple of other designers that are on PCs, but I'm not religious about it. Yeah. Just if it's tall and it does a job, I use that.
So sort of plans for you, obviously it's January, New Year sort of thing, is there anything sort of plans-wise, sort of taking your business on to the next sort of stage? Are you plans to move to, Colchester or Ipswich? Are you going to stay where you are?
Stay where I am, build up my business. I recently became a finalist in the Suffolk Business Accelerators.
Okay,
So I've got to do my presentation in a few weeks' time.
All right. Keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and there's also there's a trade fair in April, and I volunteered to be a speaker. So I don't really volunteer for such things, but you've got to put yourself out there. So
I mean, that's the thing. I think that people can become overly dependent on social media, which works better for some business types than others.
I've got some work through social media, through Facebook, but it's only been through referrals. So my client Abbie Redpath, someone on Wire actually said I need a logo and website. My client Abbie Redpath said Abbie. And that's how I got it. So you can say through social media, but most of my work has been through networking, actually meeting people, because they see you're a human. There's millions of graphic designers out there, not one of which have got that much experience, and just sort of work out on one and say, I can design a website.
I think that's very much a generation thing, because I think a lot of people that are coming into the media, and into the employment market now are going to be an awful lot more IT and technology, social media dependent than necessarily sort of, my generation was kind of, just when that was sort of starting to come in and yours sort of thing, and then I think it will go more so when younger people come in, but when younger people come into the employment market, they're still going to have to embrace getting out, meeting someone, sitting opposite a client.
You always got to see it from the potential client's point of view, and it's all about trust and professionalism. Anyone can say anything about what they do via social media and via the web. Until they meet you, they're not really going to trust you.
And it's hard to back it up as well. It's very hard to back it up online because, someone could say to me, are you a graphic designer? And I'd say yes, here's my work, and I can just do a Google search and just chuck a load of stuff over from anyone. Just jump to page 30.
The problem is a lot of people think they can design, and it's the same for lots of other creative situations, like for photographers, and I see photographers on Facebook saying, oh, this person think they can just take any photograph and, and it's the same for designers. Some people think, oh, I can design my own logo. But do you really want it designed by someone who doesn't understand how people think when they see pictures, basically?
Okay, right. So, in summing up, the biggest sort of issue is going to be, the technology changes for mobile devices and stuff that come in for design, and how designers and developers are going to sort of integrate with that. And sort of other than that, for you essentially it's business as usual for the new year sort of thing.
Yeah, grow it a bit more.
All right, well, best of luck with it, and thank you very much for coming. It's been lovely to have you, and nice to finally meet you as well, because we talked over the design phase and stuff, so thanks very much for coming in, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, thanks very much, bye-bye.